For those of you who were not with us last week, we're going to review just a little bit. We're in the 15th chapter of Luke, and it begins with these words. It says, tax collectors and sinners are all crowded around listening to Jesus. The Pharisees, teachers of the law of Moses, started grumbling. This man is friendly with sinners. He even eats with them. So that's how the gospel starts. Last week we talked about those religious leaders. Like many of us, like to think of people being in two groups, two kinds of people, right? There's the good people and there's the bad people. There's the winners, the losers, the saints, the sinners. There's them and then there's us. When Jesus didn't make the distinction between them and us, when he treated everyone as a child of God, the religious leaders just couldn't handle it, right? So Jesus, instead of lecturing them on their faulty theology, says, let me tell you a story. And he tells them actually three stories. Three stories about being lost and then being found again. Story about a lost sheep and how the shepherd leaves 99 sheep, leaves them to fend for themselves to go look for this one. And when he finds it, they rejoice, they have a party and celebrate. Or the woman who loses one coin. She has 10 coins. She loses one of them, turns the house upside down trying to find it. When she finds it, she calls her friends, let's celebrate, have a party, the lost has been found. And the story of a father who had two sons, and one of them is lost. And we heard last week how he returned and was found. We often call this story the story of the prodigal son. And I never, when I was growing up, I don't think I knew what that word prodigal meant. It's not a word we use outside. I've never heard it outside of the Bible being used somewhere. And I thought it was sort of a negative word. I thought it meant someone who was lost or someone who had lost was wayward or something like that. That's not really what it means. What it means is something that has been done extravagantly or lavishly. And so the stories Jesus tells are about prodigalness, about this lavishness, this shepherd who will leave the 99 just to look for this one that was lost, or the woman who turns her house upside down to search for what is lost. Or in the story of the father of the two sons, it's a story of the son who lavishly, excessively just wastes his whole inheritance, burns through it like nothing, and it's all gone. But it's also a story of a father's love who was prodigal and excessive, who would never, not for a second, let go of his love for this son who had been lost. So just to get everyone up to speed, we want to share the story with you again. This is a slightly different translation. Feeling footloose and frisky, the feather-brained fellow forced his fond father to fork over the farthings. He flew far to foreign fields and frittered his fortune, feasting fabulously with faithless friends. Finally, facing famine, fleeced by his fellows in folly, he found himself a feed-flinger in a filthy farmyard. Fairly famished, he fain would have filled his frame with forage food from the fodder fragments. Fooey, my father's flunkies fare far fancier, the frazzled fugitive fumed, frankly facing facts. Frustrated by failure, filled with foreboding, he fled forthwith to his family, and falling at his father's feet, he floundered forlornly, Father, I have flunked and fruitlessly forfeited family favor. But the faithful father, forestalling further flinching, frantically flagged the flunkies to fetch forth the finest fatling and fixed a feast. Okay, that's not how Jesus said it, but it's you get the basic story, all right? It's called The Prodigal in the Key of F, all right? My guess is when the religious leaders heard the story, they were probably nodding along, saying, okay, I get this is good. It reinforced what they already knew, that there were two kinds of people, lost and found people, good or bad people. The son was the one who was lost. He realized he was a bad person. He learned his lesson, was willing to pay the price for his bad decisions, and be treated like a hired hand. And Jesus says, wait a minute, the story's not over. And they go, what? Right? He says, remember at the beginning of the story, he said the father had two sons. Well, what happened to the older son? The older son had been out in the field, but when he came near the house, he heard music and dancing, so he called to one of the servants and asked, what's going on here? The servant answered, Your brother has come home safe and sound, and your father ordered us to kill the best calf. The older brother got so angry, he would not even go into the house. So his father came out. He begged him to go in, but he said, "Father, I have worked for you like a slave. I've always obeyed you. You've never given me even a little goat that I could have a dinner with my friends, and now this other son of yours wasted your money on prostitutes, and now he has come home, and you ordered the best calf to be killed for a feast." His father replied, "My son, you're always with me. Everything I have is yours. We should be glad and celebrate. Your brother was dead, but now he is alive. He was lost. Now he is found." And that's where he leaves the story, right there. The younger son had been lost. He ran away. He cut himself off from his father's love. But he found his way home and was welcomed back. Now it's the older son who has cut himself off from the father's love by refusing to join the party, right? I don't think he even realizes that he is lost, just as his brother was. The question is, Jesus is posing, will this older son be found as well? Jesus leaves it unresolved, doesn't tell us what he does. It remains to be seen. The question is, will this older son's need to have two kinds of people keep him from an experience of grace? Will he recognize that by pulling away from his undeserving brother, he's also pulling away from his loving father? It's easy for us to see the brokenness or lostness of other people, right? Their sins are very apparent to us. It's much harder to recognize it in ourselves. But until we do, we won't experience grace. We won't enter into the party. As long as we keep up this pretense that we have it all together, that we are not like them, then we miss the party. We cast ourselves out. As long as we can only see what's wrong, we can't celebrate what's good. So is there hope for the older brother? Of course. Changing hearts is one of the things that God does best.
I know that look you're giving, like you got something to prove. 'Cause I have walked for miles and miles in that same pair of shoes. You refuse forgiveness like it's something to be earned. And sometimes pain's the only way that we can learn. You can never fall too hard, so fast, so far that you can't get back when you're lost. Where you was never too late, so bad, so much that you can't change who you are. Change who you are. You believe in freedom, but you don't know how to choose. You gotta step out of your feelings that you're so afraid to lose. And every day you put your feet on the floor, you gotta walk through the door. It's never gonna be easy, but it's all worth fighting for. You can never fall